Alright, I don't know if this video is gonna stay recording for very long. Sometimes they do. Sometimes I only get 13 seconds worth of recording out of it. Life happens, don't it? That's right. Life is what happens while you're busy making plans. No plan survives an encounter with the enemy intact. I think that's an important thing to remember. My enemies chose to be my enemies, not the other way around. They chose to do horrible things and pretend like they had done nothing wrong. They chose to outright lie, cheat, steal, and destroy evidence. Before Natalie died, there was a woman named Mandy Singer. Mandy Singer's son disappeared. One of the people that I talk about in my stories pretty often is Ogre, or Christopher Weaver. The last person to be seen with her son was Christopher Weaver, and I did go and find him, and I did speak with him about Ryan. And Ryan was later found alive, thank goodness. Now, before Natalie was killed, I'd been victimized for over a year over things that I hadn't done. Things that people were pretending I had done to Natalie or Alicia Bollinger. Things that to this day, not once ever in any of this have Natalie Bollinger or Alicia Bollinger ever said such things. Natalie claimed that I stalked her. And I don't even know that it was Natalie who said that. It was somebody in that household. That was in Virginia. A lot of the stuff that people want to pretend that I was doing to stalk Natalie, it's a bunch of stuff that did actually happen. Me going to Virginia, that actually happened. Me staying behind her work, well, that did not actually happen, but she used to work there. Her sister wanted me to stay behind there was a Starbucks. This is at the Chesapeake Mall in Virginia. And of course, there's a Starbucks 2 doors down from the Cricket store that Alicia Bollinger still works at. Her and Natalie had originally both worked there, but Natalie tried to commit suicide because I wasn't there fast enough. She fucked up her leg and lost her job. So when she made her last public post, she didn't state that those things, first of all, she left out the part where those were her ideas. She completely omitted that piece of information. See, if you ask somebody to do something and then they do it, and then you play victim because they did what you asked, hey, you don't want people to look at the fact that you asked. You're going to do everything that you can to convince people not to look. That's the thing that I learned from Jamie Curtis. So Jamie Curtis is a player. And what players do, they play multiple people, and they'll play these people off of each other as well. Like with me and Hayden McCall. Hayden McCall thought he was in love with Jamie Curtis, right? So when he was done with Jamie and went and got himself a girlfriend, well, that's when Jamie all of a sudden had to have Hayden McCall's attention. Had to have it. Hayden McCall had to show up tonight. Had to show up for this party. And what did she do? She made fun of him the whole night and shamelessly threw her vagina at God, who was it? I remember his mom's name was Marla, and everybody had a crush on her. Oh, Jesus. Dylan Tagmeyer. So basically, she was just using Dylan Tagmeyer to try to make Hayden McCall feel completely like shit. Later on, me and Hayden McCall are sitting on the front porch of her other house, and Hayden had ditched his girlfriend to come hang out with Jamie. Jamie had hinted that she was going to give him a chance, but she sure as hell didn't. Oh no. That was the night James Peyton showed up for the first time. Now, mind you, at this point, the only thing that I knew about James Peyton, I knew that he had a twin brother. I knew that his older brother, one of his older brothers, by the name of Dusty, was one of my bullies in high school. And I knew what Jamie had said about James prior to that. Jamie had told me that James had raped Jackie McKenzie. Now, it turns out that that was an outright lie, but then again, you've got somebody who's a player, a manipulator. If you want what you want, you find a way to get it, right? Well, how do we teach people to get it? There's a lot of drug addicts out there, and Jamie's not any different. She was all sorts of stuck on meth at the time, and that hurt. The thing that hurt worse than that, though, was taking her son away from me. That was horrible. But I helped her to move because it's what she wanted. She wanted to get away from all of the suitors, all of the guys that she had been leading on. And I'm not talking about leading on in the way that I usually do. Usually, when I'm talking about leading someone on, it's like, hey man, you need to make a report to the police, but you can't do it safely by yourself. You need somebody to go in with you. Well, I'll go in with you on Friday. And then Friday, you wait around and you wait around and you wait around. They never show up. You try calling them and they ignore you. You try getting a hold of them on Facebook, they ignore you. Like, what the hell? That's the kind of leading on I'm usually talking about. But no, leading someone on the way that a player does is different. You let them believe that they stand a chance. That all of these other guys that are hanging out are creepy, but there's always a reason or an excuse why she has to keep these other guys around, and always a reason and an excuse why you're not to confront these men who she's telling you are predatory. And meanwhile, she's telling each and every one of these guys the same exact thing about you. Meanwhile, she's telling you you're the only guy who's not like that. And what's she doing with these other guys? She's telling them that they're the only guy who's not like that. So then you've got a whole bunch of guys competing with each other over nothing. Not a goddamn thing. And the worst part is, Jamie didn't have to try to fucking play me like that. I was the only guy there that wasn't interested in her. I was interested in her as a human being, not as some sort of partner in mating. There's a lot of stuff that you guys just simply aren't going to understand because you've never been there. Now, I've been listening to Lil Nas, Old Town Road this morning, a little bit of BB Rexa, some of the band Perry. Killing Me Softly, I've probably listened to 3 times already this morning. So I can get off of this playlist. I can go back and play it later. We'll go to the part that says Your Channel. And that tells me what topics we're supposed to be going off on today. It says Mandy Singer, Mandy Hughes, Shawna Sinclair, Natalie Bollinger, Rebecca Grossnickel, and Street Justice. Obviously, since the very beginning, when people were pretending that none of these people existed, that these were all figments of my imagination, that I was making these things up, I've been able to get these actual people, their actual voices and conversations with them about these situations and these scenarios, record them and put them on my YouTube and on my Facebook. And sure, people don't like it, but at the same time, I'm still being victimized over this situation. I am still victimized over the mentally ill tag. I'm still victimized over a record that I don't deserve. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I did not break the law because I absolutely did. On multiple occasions, out of necessity, when people's lives were at stake. When people like Mandy Hughes did not keep their word, when people like Mandy Singer did not come forward, and Mandy did. Mandy did come forward eventually, thank goodness. And of course, that's public here on my YouTube. She speaks about it. She speaks about having to get sober. She speaks about how she wasn't able to help me while she was using. And with so many of these other people that offered to help that were using, they don't want to admit that. They're not ready for recovery yet. They're not ready to quit yet. And as long as they're not ready or willing to quit their addictions, as long as they're not willing to get off of the meth or the alcohol, they're never going to be willing to admit the horrible things that they did because they were on drugs and alcohol. Now, here I am talking about addiction while I prep a cigarette for smoking. Sitting outside of a Starbucks that I go to every single day for coffee. Who am I to talk about addiction, right? Cigarettes are just as bad as cocaine, isn't it? Coffee is just as bad for you as methamphetamines, huh? Tobacco is a controlled substance. You got to be 21 now. I'm older than 21, so I don't got to worry about it. Today, I got to worry about trying to take care of my insurance stuff for the vehicle. It'll be about, I want to say about $450 for 6 months. So that'll leave me about 350 to try to live on for the rest of next month. That's going to take some doing too. When you're a homeless male and you go in for services, you're going to get blown off. You're going to get blown off. You're going to get blown off. And then you're going to get blown off. For me, there's all these services that I was eligible for as soon as I turned 18. I was eligible for them, but I had no help getting them. Running around like a chicken with my fucking head cut off. Trying to make everybody happy because if I do what they say, they might help me the way that they say they're gonna. Sean, if you do this, I'll do this. Sean, if you do this, I'll do this. Sean, if you fix this, I'll do this for you. Sean, if you draw that for me, I'll pay you this much. In the end, most of them up, and I'd draw them up, and people just simply wouldn't pay. Paying their plumber is more important. Paying their electric bill is more important. In concept, they want to pay you. In reality, they're going to pay the babysitter first. Now, in order to keep that thing safe, you got to give to them because if you're, I guess my backpack's not out here right now. If you're moving around with your artwork in a backpack, it gets fucked up. The edges get bent and smashed and folded. If anything spills or there's any moisture, it's going to warp the paper. As you're sliding stuff in and out of there, you're going to smudge it. I mean, all sorts of things are going to happen. But then there's the fact that you've done the work in all these situations and people are fine with taking advantage of you. You're somebody that they're allowed to take advantage of. You're somebody who's easy to take advantage of. You're somebody that if you take advantage of this person, you know that you can get away with it. And that's the thing through all of this, from Ken and Leah, Ken Wilson and Leah Plunkett, to Natalie Bollinger, to many, many, many other predators, including Natalie Bollinger's family and Kara Johnson Miles. So many people took advantage of me because they could. And you've gotten to hear from Dan about the situation with, another person from my stories, Layla Johnson, a.k.a. Missy Johnson. Like, that's the help that I had. That is the help that I had. You go back through and you listen to the videos with Brett Roloff, including the one where he's literally rooting through his own feces trying to find a bag of meth. That's the help that I had. That is the help that I had. People wanted to help in concept. So many of these people whose lives I literally saved, some of them who literally saved my life, like Jerry Sparks. You notice I got no teeth? I had an infection in my mouth and it was going to kill me. Miss Jerry came down. Her ex-boyfriend Ronald Reeder picked me up and took me to Alliance, and Miss Jerry picked me up in Alliance and took me all the way up to Montana. Got my teeth taken out. I didn't die. And I literally would have. It was that bad. Obviously, me and Miss Jerry are not friends anymore. We stopped being friends over a racist post by her son. And of course, that was while I was in Virginia visiting Natalie. Over a year later, after Natalie was killed, Miss Jerry and all the people that were involved in that racist post all wanted to be my friend again, claiming they were going to help me. And then they didn't. They misled the situation because they could. Because Lana didn't get what she wanted. Lana. That's right. When I talk about den mothers in the trap houses, when you've got a group of women and one of them is very controlling, she generally becomes the den leader of a group of women who are not being human trafficked. A woman support group is different from a man support group by a lot. My mom had support groups and church groups. In church groups, her and the other church ladies would sit around and talk about sex and talk about their favorite positions and talk about how horrible men are. That's what Lana is to that group of people. So when Lana doesn't get what she wants, everybody does what Lana wants. When Miss Jerry decided that she was going to get back with Ron, and this is after I'd rescued Miss Jerry from Ron a couple of times, and she's going to get back together with him, and of course she hid it from Lana because she already knew that Lana didn't like him. She already knew Lana's opinion of him. I mean, when she broke up with him, it was over Lana's opinion. Lana pressured her to break up with Ron the first time. The second time, it was over a situation where he depended on which side of the story or which story that Miss Jerry told. There's the when she wanted to be rescued story, which is that he had thrown a bottle at her and it smashed off the wall right next to her. And then after she got back together with him, it was, oh, well, he was talking and he gets real animated with his hands when he was talking and he knocked over a plastic Coca-Cola bottle. Okay, well, fucking see, it makes it hard to believe you. Maybe he abused the shit out of you and you left him and then you got lonely and depressed and wanted to go back to familiarity. Or maybe you wanted something different, you wanted something new, you didn't have the money to leave, and you figured that was the only way to get somebody to help you to move. I don't know. But I know that it's two different stories about the same situation. Now, Mandy Singer and Shawna Sinclair, the three posts of missing people that I made the day that Natalie disappeared. In the morning, I made one about Mandy Singer's son disappearing. I also made one about Shawna Sinclair's daughter going missing. And then In the evening, right before dinner, that's when I got the phone call. I was at Miss Peach's house. The conversations with Miss Peaches show that. That's something she should have come forward with. Instead of people coming forward just to say, oh, Sean wouldn't do that, explain what was going on. Explain what you know. Tell the truth. Now, Mandy finally spoke up. She got sober. That's Mandy Singer. And she did speak up. She spoke up on that post about her son going missing, the one that Natalie's mother wanted to get on and be mean and cruel to me over, call me a stalker. With all that stuff that happened in Virginia. And then Natalie's last post, people are wanting to pretend like I did those things in Colorado uninvited after being asked to leave these people alone. And that is simply not the case. I didn't even know they were in Colorado. How can I stay behind her work in Colorado if I don't even know she's in Colorado? Then there's the part where it's obvious I was the one being stalked. You see the stuff from Tim Beeson, it's obvious I was the one being stalked. You see the stuff from these fake profiles that were harassing me, it's obvious I was the one being stalked. You think I made 500 profiles to harass some girl who did nothing to me and so on and so forth? Hell no, I didn't make 500 profiles. I made 2 to beg for help putting a stop to it. I went to the police. There are rules when you're homeless that you follow. The police are not your friend. If you're homeless, the police are not your friend. You don't ever talk to the police. If you talk to the police, the homeless will push you out of their society because police are bad fucking news. The police are not first responders. You are the first responder. You. Mandy Hughes, she's a different Mandy. She's one of the ones who was going to go in with me after Natalie was killed. For months and months and months and months, she was gonna, and always when it come down to actually time to do it, there was some excuse why she couldn't. Maybe it's an actual reason, but in either case, she needed to come forward with that reason, or those cops were going to write down whatever excuse they wanted. And of course, they did everything that they could, including using the media, to make sure that I was targeted by the public in this way. These cops know exactly what they're doing. They knew exactly what making me targeted by the media was going to do. And then all they did was pretend it wasn't happening. And all of these other people who want to pretend I'm the bad guy because they were targeted by my predators, because they spoke up at the very beginning on these Natalie Bollinger groups and in these Natalie Bollinger groups. At the very beginning, people did speak up, but I was prevented from telling them what was going on. I was prevented from speaking to them in person to explain what was going on. My predators were not denied that right. Alicia Bollinger, after Natalie went missing, went all around Boulder, Colorado, screaming at people, "Where's Sean? Where's Sean?" I hadn't been able to be in Boulder for over a year by that point because of slander specifically from Alicia Bollinger and Natalie Bollinger and Maddie Boa. Why the fuck was she looking for me in Boulder? Every time I went to Boulder for an entire year, I got threatened, harassed, or assaulted. I needed help. Now, the Bollingers, their helpers stuck around. Their helpers from before Natalie was killed continued to help, and the media helped, and Rob Gavigan helped them. And Sword and Scale helped them to sell a false narrative, destroyed evidence took my interview, chopped it up into little pieces to try to paint me as something I'm not, to try to paint me as saying something that I didn't. And even with these people's, all of these people's history of doing these things to others, I'm treated like I'm the bad guy. With Matty Boa having a history of running around Boulder, Colorado, lying about men. With Waylon Lolatai's history of assaulting people. Clearview's history of holding people longer than they should. They do this for police. A lot of hospitals do, especially behavioral health units. You try to turn in a bad cop, they call you mentally ill. Boom! Done. They automatically win. That's why you need someone there in person, and I did not have anyone there in person. I had pretty words. I had empty promises. And the longer it took for these people to keep their word, the more resources it cost me. People want to treat me like shit over all of this free money that I got from those GoFundMes. No, I didn't. I didn't get a single fucking penny from them. Not one. Those were set up by other people. If you guys gave money to any of those 3 GoFundMes, that money was not sent to me. It was sent to Candace Bondurant, or it was sent to Cara Rogers, or it was sent to some lady who I don't even know. You guys got no idea how fucked up this is. Now, why is it that that whole situation happened? The situation with the GoFundMes? Because Candace Bondurant was threatened, harassed, and intimidated by the fucking cops and by internet nut jobs. And rather than trying to make a police report and speaking out about it, she wanted to take it out on me, and I fucking got pissed. You goddamn right I did. She gets victimized, so she victimizes me. She offered. When she spoke up and people were harassing her, she needed to make a fucking police report. When Officer Michael Beard was harassing her, she needed to speak out. Rebecca Grossnickel, she wanted me to come up here and verify that she was telling the truth. Well, I can't verify all of it. There's a lot of people that are like, I don't know nothing. No, you absolutely do something, or do know something, or I wouldn't be asking. See, that's the situation with Rebecca Grossnickel. She's asking for a reason. Sure, you might not be able to verify every part of the story, but other people can. I can verify that she fed homeless people in Boulder, Colorado. I can absolutely verify that because I've eaten her food. I have eaten the food that she gave out to homeless people in Boulder, Colorado. So I can verify at least that part. And then people want to pretend that she's imagining these other people in her life. No, John Becker does actually exist. Desiree is in my stories. There's also paperwork at the police department in Sidney, Nebraska that's got Desiree's name on it. And mine. Desiree absolutely exists. John Becker absolutely exists. Victor King absolutely exists. Yes, there is a lot of stuff in her story that I cannot verify. I can't. I wasn't there. I haven't seen any evidence of it, but I've seen a lot of evidence. A lot of evidence. These people that she's talking about do exist. And she is getting the mentally ill treatment as well. And that is not okay. But now she's freaking out, like hardcore. She wants to deal with this as street justice. Now, y'all remember I was telling you about Desiree, how she wanted to do the whole street justice thing with Kevin McGregor. Now, who's Kevin McGregor? He's the human trafficker in Cheyenne, Wyoming, across from the community shelter right next door to the Holiday Inn. It's in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Now, my story goes all throughout the country. Cheyenne, Wyoming, Rawlins, Wyoming, Chapel, Nebraska, Tacoma, Washington. This corruption is the same everywhere. The treatment of the homeless is the same everywhere. Using the mentally ill tag as an excuse is everywhere. This is their protocol. When I tell you someone has to go in with me, I mean someone actually does have to go in with me. Their protocol when you are by yourself and easy to victimize is completely different from their protocol when you go in with someone. Just like their protocol when they know they're being recorded live on YouTube is different from their protocol when they can catch you alone in an alley. Brett Roloff may have been completely fucking strung out on goddamn meth while I was in Virginia. But when the cops were there to pull their bullshit, whereas if it had just been me, I'd have been taken to a mental hospital or a behavioral health unit and locked up. The fact that Brett Roloff was there speaking, the fact that Brett Roloff was there was the difference. Brett Roloff being there and speaking is the reason that I was not sent to a mental institution or a behavioral health unit for trying to turn in my predators. And that's what I was trying to do. I had called the FBI. Again, there's a lot of phone calls to the FBI, a bunch of them. And I had explained to the lady on the phone, hey, these people are trying to bully me to suicide. These people have threatened, harassed, intimidated, and assaulted me on repeated occasions. I have had to move repeatedly. People say you just need to move on. What does that mean? Does that mean I need to move to a different location? Because I've done that over 40 times since Natalie was killed. Does that mean I just need to forget about it? I don't get to forget about it. I can't see any of my loved ones. I cannot go to Colorado to see my loved ones. My support network that could have helped me after Natalie was killed, I couldn't go see them before Natalie was killed because of Natalie's slander. And I saw this thing this morning, and I don't agree with the politics of it, but the common sense of it makes perfect sense. It says, okay, so Joe Biden increased gas prices in January because Russia invaded Ukraine in February. Well, that's not a reaction. Now, I'm of the belief personally that the president doesn't get to dictate gas prices. The oil barons do. They get to decide, and we are all under their thumb. Fuck it. Now, whether I'm right or wrong about that is arbitrary. You can put that in the classification of fact, or you can put it in the classification of opinion, or you can put it in the classification of conspiracy theory. It really doesn't matter. The thing is that people wanted to back me into a corner through harassment, threats, and intimidation. Back me into a corner until I'm literally screaming for help. And then they want to pretend that because I am literally screaming for help, that I'm the problem. that I'm the bad guy, that I am the villain because I'm trying to get help. For an entire year before Natalie was killed, I was trying to get help. And I have proven that time and again. With what evidence I have left, I can still prove that. Even with repeated phones being lost and stolen. I only lost one of them. All the rest were fucking stolen. A few of them I got back more than once for them to get stolen again. The whole time trying to force police to look at that evidence. But no matter what, they weren't going to look at it. Now you look at the way the police have treated me since the assault by Waylon Lolatai. This is a guy with a long history as a police officer of assaulting homeless people or people he assumes to be homeless. Matter of fact, a lot of y'all are into that Zaid Atkinson thing. He was the officer with the shotgun in the Zaid Atkinson situation. Now, with Mandy Singer and Mandy Hughes, they got different reasons. Mandy Singer, she said, you know what? I was on drugs at the time. I was in a fucked up situation. She apologized to me, well, quite a bit. The apology kind of helps, but it's the fact that she took action that made a difference. The fact that she actually spoke out. Now, any action beyond that, she was planning on going to my court with me on the 4th and helping me go through that. But her own family issues and her own health issues prevented that. However, unlike these other people who wanted to continually tell me these things, but not come forward about it to the public, not come forward about it to the courts, you know that I was trying to get help. You know that you promised me that help. If you really got the flu and couldn't keep your word because you got the flu, you should have no problem saying that to the cops. You should have no problem saying that to the courts. You should have no problems putting that in a report. People are dead, folks. What motivation do the Bollingers have for committing the crimes that they've committed? People are dead because they're shitty people. What do the police have to do with all of this? What motivation do they have? What is their motive for committing the crimes that they committed? Same one. People are dead. With these cops in Chapel, Nebraska, and these cops in Colorado, people are dead because they didn't want to do their job for a homeless person, a homeless male, a quote unquote mentally ill homeless male. I haven't stopped speaking out. You guys say that I deserve this, that I deserve the abuse because I spoke out. No. Many of you pretend that the abuse started because I spoke out. Well, how can that be? How can I raise the gas prices in January over an invasion that didn't happen until February? How does that work out? No, I spoke out about abuse, and I was abused further for it for an entire year. You guys have seen that post, the one that I keep putting up about things you're not supposed to say to a survivor. And what did all of the people that I went to for help to try to stop the abuse, that is how they treated me. Those are the things that they told me over and over and over again, as if you say it 100 times, it'll eventually work. No. A lot of people, their advice was, hey, you know what? You need to just keep on calling these people until they do something. Well, if you keep on calling them till they do something, they pretend you're disrupting their operations. That's right, I was charged with disrupting government operations for trying to turn in Scott DaCosta. I called the Nebraska State Patrol. They said they don't police the police, which is an outright lie, and I can prove that with many recent court cases with cops, including officers that I had to deal with personally, like Michelle Quinn of Garden County. Guess what she did? While I was locked up in prison, yay! She beat the hell out of her girlfriend. That's right, folks. Women can be predators and they can be predatory towards other women. That's right, folks. Just because somebody is a lesbian does not mean that she's not going to be physically dominant towards a female. Michelle Quinn took it upon herself to beat the shit out of her girlfriend, and Nebraska State Patrol did get involved. Whereas with me, from 2018 to today, I've tried to get the Nebraska State Patrol to do something. At this point, they're sending the exact officers from the Nebraska State Patrol that I'm trying to turn in because they didn't do their fucking jobs. They went out of their way not to do their jobs. They went out of their way to help my predators because the blue line of bullshit, aka blue line of silence, but it's not just silence. These people commit felonies so they can help other officers get away with their crimes. CRIMES. That's right, cops committing crimes. This is not a new concept. As far as street justice goes, Rebecca wants street justice now. I'm not going to help her with street justice. I will get the word out. I will speak out about all of the shit that she went through. I will absolutely do that. If she needs someone to go in with her to make a police report, I will absolutely do that. I will not go killing people. I am not going to go skin somebody's child. Now, you can listen in the court date with me versus Leslie Snell. They already decided my guilt before court started. You can hear through the entire proceeding how he makes special exceptions of the law for Leslie Snell, who works for Scott DaCosta, the very predator I'm trying to turn in. Matter of fact, I'm trying to turn in all of them there in Dual County. It is a conflict of interest for them to be involved in anything. It has been a conflict of interest since 2018 for Dual County to get involved in any of this. Nebraska State Patrol was supposed to do something in 2018. And it wasn't until after I was assaulted by one of their own that anybody actually got back to me. How horrible is that? Nebraska State Patrol says it's not our job to police the police. You have to call Dual County Sheriff's Department. I called Dual County Sheriff's Department. Dual County Sheriff's Department says we can't investigate ourselves. You got to call the Nebraska State Patrol. So I called the Nebraska State Patrol. They tell me, well, literally, they did that back and forth. Back and forth for literally years. The day that I was assaulted by Scott DaCosta and not Deputy Lassen, Nebraska State Patrol Officer Lassen. The day that I was assaulted by the two of them, including putting their knee on the back of my neck like was done with George Floyd, I'd made calls back and forth for about an hour and a half. I was having people like Wendell McPhee telling me, hey, man, sheriff's running around town saying he's going to run you out of town. That's a good-looking vehicle. Now, every time that I had help on the way, they'd pull this shit. Now, I have to tell what I'm doing openly on my YouTube channel so that people are aware of what I'm doing, so that when the cops try to pull their bullshit afterwards and play a bullshit narrative, my intentions were spoken beforehand. The fact that those were my intentions shows that they had motive for their felonies. The fact that I was trying to turn them in shows their motive for lying outright and having me put in prison. In prison. That's right, folks. I wasn't even convicted of a felony. I wasn't convicted of anything. I was charged with misdemeanors. And imagine this. The four people who all worked together to have me put in prison and prevented from going to my court dates are all four of the people who I had announced on my YouTube channel that I was trying to turn in. Imagine that. Tell me that doesn't set off red flags, and the fact that it is so blatant and obvious, and it is recorded. People are dead, though. Why did these cops commit these crimes to begin with? Because people were dead and because I was a homeless male who had to go in alone. Now, there were opportunities for people to speak. At my grandmother's funeral, yeah, you goddamn right, Laura Nelson should have spoke up. That was the opportune time for her to speak up. I needed those officers to do something about Ted Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger. And these people continued this in court. And the bailiffs in the court helped them, and it is recorded. That's the worst part, folks, is that even with these things recorded, you won't listen to it. You won't look at it. Now, on Natalie's last post, Mandy Singer finally got on here, and she was arguing with a lot of my predators. And the things that I've been saying, I've been taking screenshots of. This lady, Carol Ann Bryce, and many, many, many others have gotten onto this post to harass me, to threaten me, to do all sorts of things that are immoral, to continue calling me those things that did not happen. All because I was never allowed my rights in court to face my accusers, to show evidence. Instead, they used and abused the courts to deny me all of my rights and to cut me off from all of my resources, including my human resources. They used the public to have me harmed, to have my Facebook damn near destroyed, to make sure that, well, like situations with this, these ladies are talking about doing what? All getting on and complaining about stuff so that it gets removed. A lot of people want to complain, hey, you complain that nobody listens to you and you're not allowed to this, that, and the other, but then you delete other people. You're goddamn right I do. You're goddamn right I do. There's a big difference between someone trying to show the truth and somebody being a troll. Now, these people all throughout this, they do this name-calling thing over and over and over and over again. That's their idea of reasoning. And most of these people who are doing this are women. They think that it's okay. Like them calling names somehow gives them a factual argument. No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. And of course, they keep up the name-calling thing throughout the whole thing. And throughout all of it, you can see that I'm trying to show evidence of the threats, harassment, intimidation. I'm trying to show actual conversations with actual witnesses throughout all of it. To this day, my predators, Scott DaCosta, who I have been trying to turn in and have been very vocal about trying to turn in openly on my Facebook and my YouTube since 2018. And Nebraska State Patrol makes me go to this man when I'm threatened, harassed, assaulted by people like Robert Franklin Warnick, who is a registered sex offender. People like Sandy Fromm, who is a literal stalker. Women are 11 times more likely to be stalkers than men. They're just not as likely to be convicted. Why? Because of your bias. You just assume that penis means predator and vagina means victim. How screwed up is that? And I post up stuff from other people who are speaking out. You guys get to see how right I am about all of the things that I'm speaking out about. And you guys want to argue and say, that's your opinion, that's your opinion. No, a fact is a fact. If somebody punches me in the nose, they punched me in the nose. That's not a fucking opinion. Now, these people who are doing this, they're doing it on a post, a slanderous post that I have been victimized over for years now. This post is not about them. It's about me. But they want to get on here and slander me and harass me and threaten me on this post that is about me, and then claim that I shouldn't be allowed to get on and post evidence there. But they think it is perfectly all right for them to get on there and threaten and harass and intimidate and try to destroy evidence and try to convince others to do so as a group. And of course, on here, they're doing it blatantly and openly. Blatantly and openly. They know it's against the law. They also know they're not going to get in trouble because nobody actually cares. Now, of course, with Rebecca, she's not interested in my stuff. You know, she's fighting her own battle, and she's got a lot of hatred. Right now, she feels trapped in the place that she is. She wants to go somewhere else, but her safety is a guy named Harold. So Harold is important. She's not willing to do a whole heck of a lot until Harold is there for her safety. And that is understandable. At the same time, the way that she's going about things now is even more dangerous. Like for me, I didn't go off for, and she's been doing the whole threatening thing for about a year now. Me, I don't like threatening people. For me, when I finally threatened those people in August of 2018, and mind you, I threatened the people who threatened me, and I also threatened the President of the United States. I had to do something to get law enforcement to look at the evidence, and they literally did all they could to dance through a minefield of crimes committed by law enforcement and by the Bollingers to cherry pick the little bits and pieces that they could use to try to manipulate it and get themselves out of trouble. And because I had to go in alone, because I had empty promises from people like Mandy Hughes, and empty promises from people like Kayla Trujillo, and empty promises from people like Brenda Dickinson, it just did not happen. And it's not that I wasn't going in alone. People say you got to do it by yourself. You see how I was treated when I went in by myself. It's exactly how I told you I would be treated if I went in by myself. You see how I was treated when there were people there. It is how I told you I would be treated if people were there. Clearview. I told you what they were doing, and boom, they're on the news for doing exactly what I said. Waylon Lolatai as well. Those two officers who killed Demetrius Shankling as well. My ex-neighbor, Susie in Chapel, Nebraska, she was in the news as well. A lot of these places that I have been in the news. A lot that I spoke out about have been in the news. A lot of the predators that committed these crimes against me have been in the news for doing these things to others. Some of them are in prison for doing these things to others, and yet you still want to pretend like I'm a nut job. When it comes to Rebecca, I know exactly what she's going through. She's being treated like none of the things that happened in her life actually happened, and that's people's excuse for looking away. Meanwhile, there are people who were there for those situations, who should have spoken up when she first started asking for help. She shouldn't have to scream and shout and do what her predators are doing to her back. Yes, people are threatening her and harassing her and assaulting her. Yes, she did have to go to the hospital because her fucking head was smashed. Yes, that is something you need to go to the hospital for. When your head gets smashed in, you need to go to the hospital. It's going to be documented at the hospital, and it was. She needs to be heard, but she's homeless as well. She's got the mentally ill tag as well. These people are slandering her and claiming things about her that I know to be untrue, to try to paint her as mentally ill. She's overwhelmed. She for assuredly has PTSD. There is no doubt about that. But that is a far cry from fucking schizophrenia, especially when they're calling her schizophrenic for things that I was there for. They're claiming that she's schizophrenic for saying things that I was there for.